before long, there's other things that come up because Bob's really good with people. We give him that responsibility, and then we give him this responsibility. And before long, this box begins to get fatter and fatter and fatter. Does this make sense? What's happening is we're just loading more and more things onto Bob. We haven't really delineated them. We haven't written out a specific job description. It's just everything is kind of fallen into that and other duties as necessary. So Bob just begins to feel overwhelmed. And when you ask Bob what he does, his answer is, I do everything. Does that make sense? You may know exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah, I do everything in the company. But if I ask you to begin to identify what all you do, it's just kind of pulling things out of the air. Yeah, I do that. Yeah, I do that. And it's just kind of confusing. And then, get this, what happens? Bob has to move. Oh no. Or Bob decides to leave. Now, if Bob has to leave or Bob decides to move, now everything that Bob was doing is gone from the company. And we're like pooping our pants because how are we going to find another Bob that can do everything that Bob was doing? Bob's worn out. He's going, man, I just can't keep up with the pace. It's just everything's happened, and we know that Susie does a lot of stuff. Jeanette, we're not really for sure. She comes, we're not really for sure what she does, but everybody's busy. Everybody's busy. And if I'm available and Jeanette's not able to make it, well, then I'll just come down here and do Jeanette's job and so on. But it's just kind of all over the board. This is a very classic way to put together an organizational chart. It's what I see all the time. It leads to confusion. It leads to overwork. It leads to a lack of consistency. It leads to burnout. And all of this is simply because this many people trying to do all of the different responsibilities of the company is just overwhelming, specifically when each of those responsibilities aren't identified. So let's take a look at how the best way to put together an organizational chart. I love this. Again, hopefully this is making sense to you here. So we're going to take this off. And what we're going to do here is, up at the very top, we're going to start with the CEO, okay? So this is going to be our CEO. Rather than putting names in the boxes right now, what we want to do is we want to put responsibilities in the boxes. So we need to get an idea of what all the responsibilities are. Not just the people, okay, but the list of responsibilities. So in every organization underneath the CEO, whether you are a one-man shop or woman shop, or whether you have 100 employees, there are at least 3 primary divisions of your company, primary areas that you need to focus on to make sure that your company is healthy. The first area over here, I'm going to move these guys. The first area over here is what I'm going to call sales and marketing. Okay? This branch over here is responsible for bringing business in. Somehow we've got to bring business in. Well, Clay, we just go by word of mouth. Was just with an attorney this morning, okay? Meeting with him. So tell me about how do you guys get business? Well, primarily on a referral basis. How long you been doing this? About 34 years. How's it working? Well, Clay, I think it works pretty good for us. We get a lot of referrals. It's really nice. A little bit later on in the conversation, he's talking about how business goes up and down and up and down. Well, we're seasonal. We always know about this time things are going to happen here and things are going to happen there. It's just the market. It's just the way things go. That may sound familiar to you. The idea here is if you are just waiting for the phone to ring because of referrals or word of mouth, then you are completely at the whim of the public calling you. That's why your business goes up and down. That's why it's seasonal. But if we can actually put in a deliberate and intentional branch of your company that is actively going out and seeking business, you'll find that the ups and downs go away, and you can begin to go up and up and up and up. It's no longer this seasonal thing. So somehow, somebody's got to be in charge of bringing business in to the company. And then we have this middle branch here, which is our operations branch. And this operations branch, once business comes in, now we have to keep the business in. We got to take care of them. We got to make sure that we produce what they want us to produce, that we give them our product, that we give them our service, that there's quality control, there's customer service. There's all kinds of things that can fall into, depending upon your company, there's all kinds of things that can fall underneath this main branch here of operations. If you own a building, now we've got maintenance of the facility, taking care of things. If you have grounds, now we've got to have groundskeepers and everything. All of that fits under the operations branch. And then finally, over here, I call this the admin box over here. This is the entire branch on this side is making sure that the resources are available for these two guys. Making sure that operations and sales and marketing has everything that they need. That they've got the money that they need. That they've got the people that they need. That they have the training that they need. The structure that they need. All of this goes on over here in the admin. Now, because this is the first level, I call this level the VP or the senior manager level. Okay? That's what we've got going on up here. Primarily sales and marketing, they're in charge of, whoever's in this box, they're in charge of everything that has to do with sales and marketing. But as you can imagine, once we come below sales and marketing, now there needs to be somebody that is able to, that has the time, that has the responsibility of focusing on sales specifically, and somebody else that's able to focus specifically on marketing. So here, as we come into this level, now we're talking about our mid-managers. So this would be our mid-managers. Somebody like the manager, sales manager, or the marketing manager. This would be your VP of sales and marketing up here. Now we've got operations again. This can be all kinds of things. You would need to fill this in specifically for your organization. But this would be your mid-manager in charge of the facility, in charge of production, in charge could be customer service, quality control. I mean, there's many different things depending upon your company, what is going to fit at the mid-manager level for you. And then as we get over here to admin, now we're looking at our managers in charge of finance, HR, office, and I usually toss one in here, equipment or IT. If you've got trucks, if you've got computers, if something breaks down, where do people go? Who's in charge of fixing stuff? This would be this mid-manager over here. Okay? So once again, what we're doing here is we're breaking down your organizational chart according to responsibilities, not necessarily according to people. Okay? Now here in a minute, we'll go back in and start putting people's names in boxes. But right now, it starts with responsibilities. And then finally, underneath our sales, this is where we have our workers or our sales force. Okay? Same thing. Under marketing, this is where we have our workers. This is where we have our webmaster, our photographer, our videographer, our graphic design people, our advertising people, and so on. The people that are actually doing the work are down here. And underneath facilities, this is where we have the weed eater guy and the lawnmower guy and the plumber guy and so on. People taking care of the facilities. But all of that is down here at this bottom level. Okay? Once again. Now, it is possible in many different companies that from the worker base right here, some of those workers are pretty good. All right? And we want to incentivize them. We want to encourage them. So we create something in here that we might call the head worker, the head salesperson, the lead salesperson, or the supervisor, or something like that. They're not a manager. They're not necessarily a worker, but they are like one of the best workers. So this is where we plug them here. This is where we would call the leads or the heads. You guys have one of my companies, the Leadership Initiative, okay? In the Leadership Initiative, there's not a whole lot of moving pieces. There's 2 people, me and my assistant, that are in this organization. However, we have 56 boxes in our organizational chart. 56 boxes. Because they're boxes that have responsibilities, not just boxes with people's names in them. Now, obviously, when I hired my assistant, he took over 4 boxes. It was hilarious because I could tell early on that because there were 2 of us, he had in his mind that we were partners. He had in his mind that it's me and Clay. We're running this company. You know, I'm Clay's right-hand guy. I could just tell by things he was saying and stuff like that. And so I was going, it's time for me to introduce Sean to the organizational chart. So I showed him the chart with 56 boxes. I went, let me show you where you are. You are right down here. And I showed him the 1 box that he was filling out of 56. This is your role right now. If you would like to, I'd like to expand to this box and this box. It was just a few weeks later that he was in 4 different boxes. And I was in the other 52, okay? When in reality, I was in like maybe 5 others, and then we had a ton of boxes that didn't have anybody in them. But if you break it out like this, it's so much easier to see where your weaknesses are. It's so much easier to see where you need to hire. Okay, now again, when you start putting people's names in here, if we go back to Clay, Bob, Susie, and Jeanette, then we may have Clay here. Clay may also be in charge here. And because nobody else is really able to do the sales and marketing, well, Clay's over there. Uh-oh, see where this is going in? Yeah, Clay's there, and dadgum, Clay's there, and Clay's over here as well. Clay's doing like all things sales. Bob, he's the guy that really likes to do all the work and everything. So Bob, I've kind of delegated Bob here, and Bob does this, and Bob does that, and customer service. Well, Bob's not really good with humans, you know. So what we're going to do is we're going to put Susie in charge of customer service. And then all down here with this stuff, this is kind of a combination of Bob and Susie down in here. Does this make sense? And then over here, because we've got Jeanette is a real good organizer, a good admin person. She's the person that we've kind of delegated this to, and she kind of does something with the numbers. We're not really for sure what. I think she pays the bills. All right, I hope that she pays the bills. We really don't have anybody in charge of HR and hiring. And in the office, well, Jeanette's the person in the office most of the time, so she's kind of by default become the office person. And equipment and IT, well, yeah, that comes back to Clay again. Okay? So this is very common. Now that we've blown out this thing to all of these different responsibilities, now when I look at this thing, I can go, as the owner, as the CEO, I can go, no wonder I'm worn out. I'm in way too many boxes. Whereas before, when I just had 1 box with a whole bunch of things in it, it's so easy for me to mentally look at the 1 box and say, I should be able to do this. It's just this box. All I'm doing is this. Why am I so tired? Why am I so worn out? But when you blow it out and actually begin to see all the boxes that you are in, you begin to understand why you are so worn out and why you're so tired. And if you're not careful, like many business owners, you can find yourself in boxes that you should not be in. You got to get out of that box. because you're no good at it. It's not your gifting. When you do it, you're angry. When you do it, you're confused. When you do it, you just can't produce much. So you need to begin to get out of that box.